Hello and welcome to the West Asia Post with me, Ghadi Francis. This is our weekly show where we bring you all the latest updates and stories from this region that I call home. Our top story today is from the country I'm currently standing in, from Lebanon. An Israeli floating gas production unit entered the maritime zone, one that is disputed between Lebanon and Israel. Now this has prompted anger from the Lebanese government. This is because the negotiations between the two countries on this dispute are at a standstill. So, will this gas unit further escalate tensions between Lebanon and Israel? And what do the people at the borders have to say? We traveled to An-Naqoura, a town on the south of Lebanon, to find out. And here's the report. This is southern Lebanon. The risk of conflict here is always high as we move towards the borders. This is an army area, so permission to visit is hard to come by. On one side, there's the UNIFIL, Lebanese army, and Hezbollah. On the other side, the Israeli army. What we're listening to now is a drill. It's not the real war, but anything here is always possible. This is not a normal border line. It is a history of wars, clashes, invasions, and resistance. It is a line drawn with blood and tears over the years. The dispute here has never ended. It has only changed forms. Lebanon and Israel have had contested borders for years, but this time the conflict has reached the high seas. The issue is a maritime border. This is a particularly sensitive conflict. Both Israel and Lebanon claim about 860 square kilometers of the Mediterranean Sea. They consider it a part of their own exclusive economic zones. Both sides have commercial interests at stake. In 2018, Lebanon signed its first contract for offshore drilling in 2 blocks. Initial drilling in Block 4 has shown some traces of gas, but the exploration of Block 9 has not started. This is because of disputed ownership. In 2020, the two sides held historic maritime border talks. It was held in this very town of Naqoura. These talks happened even as the two remain at a formal state of war with each other. But nothing has changed in the last 2 years. An Israeli floating gas production unit has arrived in the disputed maritime zone. This has prompted the anger of the Lebanese government, especially as negotiations between the two remain at a standstill. The Lebanese government even invited the U.S. envoy Amos Hochstein, asking him to help restart talks with Israel over the issue. Lebanon says any exploration in this area is an act of aggression. Israel, on the other hand, calls this issue irrelevant. It says the Karish oil field is a part of its exclusive economic zone, so it doesn't concern the maritime dispute. Hezbollah, too, has weighed into this conflict. It says it is ready to take action if Lebanon says Israel is violating its maritime rights.
We
announced as Hezbollah that when the Lebanese state says that the Israelis are assaulting our waters and our oil, then we are ready to do our part in terms of pressure, deterrence and use of appropriate means, including force, in order to prevent Israel from assaulting our waters and oil. The issue now requires a decisive decision and a decisive opinion from the Lebanese state.
So what's at stake right now? Gas, potentially a lot of it. Both Lebanon and Israel are located in the Levant Basin. This is where a number of big subsea gas fields have been discovered since 2009. Israel already produces and exports gas. But Lebanese hopes of producing energy have been hit by political paralysis. A gas find would be a major boon for Lebanon. Eventually, such a discovery could fix Lebanon's failure to produce adequate electricity. Israel has now urged Lebanon to speed up negotiations. But will Lebanon return to the talks? Only time will tell. West Asia Bureau, WION World is One. From Jordan to Saudi Arabia and Iran, we have a lot more lined up for you in this edition of the West Asia Post. But first, as usual, let's take a quick look at what else is making the headlines across West Asia.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan confirms that he plans to stand for re-election next year. The 68-year-old made the announcement during a speech in the Aegean coastal city of Izmir. Turkey's President Erdogan says he hopes Ankara's allies would understand and respect its announced operation against Kurdish groups in northern Syria after Washington denounced the planned offensive. Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett has made a surprise visit to the UAE. The visit is Bennett's second public trip to Abu Dhabi since Israel and the UAE formally normalized ties in 2020. Iran has started to remove 27 surveillance cameras from nuclear sites in the country, according to the head of the United Nations nuclear watchdog. The move could be a near-fatal blow to chances of reviving the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Saudi Arabia's GDP grew 9.9% in the first quarter, the fastest in a decade. The growth is due to the high increase in oil activities by 20.3%. The United Nations has agreed to change Turkey's official name to Turkey. Turkey began the move to change its internationally recognized official name in English to Turkey in December.
For long, West Asia has been known as the world's most volatile region. But now, some parts of the region are choosing peace. They are choosing economics over politics, which is why reports on secret talks between Saudi Arabia and Israel took the region by storm. Will Riyadh finally normalize ties with the Jewish state? And by doing so, will it abandon the Palestine cause? Our next report decodes what this means for the region.
In 2020, Israel made new friends, that too Arab ones, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Sudan, and Morocco. Normalization was the word on the streets. Peace deals were billed as a game changer. Nearly 2 years later, the economic benefits have come quickly. But the Abraham Accords came with the promise of peace. For years, West Asian consensus was this: any normalization deal must be preceded by an Israeli-Palestinian peace deal. The Abraham Accords took that formula and turned it around. The focus was clearly on economics, not politics.
Thank you very much.
Now, two sworn regional rivals are holding secret talks, Saudi Arabia and Israel. The talks are being brokered by the United States. The rumor is they're going well. Officials say it's not just a question of if Riyadh will recognize Israel, it's a question of when. Coming from Saudi Arabia, this is huge. We are talking about the leader of the Islamic world, the custodian of Islam's holiest sites. If the Saudis recognize Israel, it will open the floodgates, sort of like a green light for other Muslim countries. This process will be long and gradual. First, economic ties, then security partnership, and finally, diplomatic recognition. That's what most reports suggest. But why now? This is because Israel has a bargaining chip, Tiran and Sanafir. These are two strategic islands in the Red Sea. Saudi Arabia wants full control of these islands. For that, they need Israel's approval. Right now, an international force is stationed in both islands. But if Israel agrees, Riyadh can assume full control. But that's not the only reason. The full diplomatic U-turn is influenced by a young population that is not committed to Palestine. Containing the Iran threat, economic benefits of normalization, and eager mediation by a very desperate ally, the United States. For years, Saudi Arabia has settled on one position. First, carve out Palestine, then discuss normalization. But over the years, the kingdom's position has seen a shift. A shift spearheaded by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. The Israel move could, however, be his biggest test so far. Right now, Saudi Arabia seems to be in no hurry. The two-state solution was first suggested in 1917. The United Nations endorsed it in 1947 and again in 1974.
Israel's defense.
More than 100 years later, Israel is a state. Palestine is not. West Asia could witness more peace deals, but the question remains, have the Arab world forgotten Palestine? West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian had a two-day visit to India. He met with the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The two countries held talks on terror and trade, as both New Delhi and Tehran are looking to boost bilateral ties. Now, what will this visit mean for the growing relations between India and Iran? We tell you in our next report.
Until 1947, both India and Iran shared borders. So the relations between the two nations are diverse, from culture to politics and even economics. Which is why this visit was especially crucial. Iran's foreign minister was in India. He had three important meetings lined up. One with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, one with External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, and one with National Security Advisor Ajit Doval. This trip is extremely important for two reasons. One, the timing. It comes just days after the controversy over Prophet's remarks. Iran had summoned the Indian envoy over it on Sunday, and days later, their foreign minister is in New Delhi. And two, the growing India-Iran ties. Jaishankar attended the swearing-in of Ibrahim Raisi last year. Over years, India and Iran ties have hit a standstill. The government hopes this visit can reset ties. The meeting with Prime Minister Modi went fine. He invited the Prime Minister to visit Iran. He also stressed on the various areas of cooperation. Amir Abdullahian and Indian Foreign Minister Jaishankar discussed the Chabahar port, Afghanistan, Ukraine, and also the nuclear deal progress. So instead of focusing on the differences, India and Iran focused on shared priorities, mainly three of them, which is connectivity via the Chabahar port, energy security, and Afghanistan, the three cornerstones of India-Iran ties. First is the Chabahar port. In the year 2016, India and Iran signed a deal to develop one berth at Chabahar. India promised to invest $500 million in Chabahar, but the project never really took off. So a new government could be crucial to restart just that. And if successful, this port could be a game changer. The second factor is energy security. India was the second biggest consumer of Iranian oil. But after US sanctions, India stopped importing Iranian crude. India was forced to stop importing Iranian crude. Both sides are now looking to restart trade. Iranian crude could even help cool off prices. And thirdly, Afghanistan. Instability in Afghanistan affects both India and Iran. So both countries are trying to work together. India and Iran relations are unique to say the least. Last year, India joined a new Quad in West Asia. The other members are Israel, the UAE and the US. All three are rivals of Iran. But that has not changed things for now. India's fierce non-alignment allows it to pursue such contrasting partners. Right now, India's hopes are on a US-Iran thaw. If US President Joe Biden lifts the sanctions, business can return to normal. But the nuclear deal talks are painstakingly slow, so India cannot wait around for that. West Asia Bureau, WION World is One.
Iraq is going through a climate crisis. The country is going through heat waves, water shortages, and sandstorms that are engulfing entire cities. Now, this is not just because of climate change. A man to blame is late dictator Saddam Hussein, whose political ecology has left the war-torn nation vulnerable to climate crises. We tell you more.
It is code red for humanity. Climate change is ringing alarm bells. But here in West Asia, freak weather is the new normal. This is Iraq's month of climate chaos. First there was water shortage, then there were sandstorms, and now heat waves. Iraq is experiencing it all. It has seen over 10 sandstorms since mid-April. The trend has been associated with climate change. But there is also the legacy of Saddam Hussein's policies, one that has left Iraq particularly vulnerable. Saddam commanded the draining of the southern marshes. This was in the 1990s. Why? Because the southern marshes were a site of popular anti-government uprisings. Saddam wanted to quell the protests, so he called for the marshes to be drained. These marshes were crucial for Iraq. Emptying them made it easier for saltwater intrusion. Since then, governments have tried to restore the marshes, but there has been no respite. The dried up water bodies provide more fodder for these sandstorms. In 2009, climate change and water wars drove ISIS recruiting in Iraq. Desperate farmhands swapped their tools for assault rifles. Their promise was simple: join us and you will never have to worry about feeding your family. It came at a time when yearly droughts had plagued the nation. As a region, West Asia is already water-stressed. There was never too much water to begin with, and reports suggest there won't be much left soon. But water scarcity is already fueling tensions here. The consequences could be dire, areas could become uninhabitable. Tensions over water sharing could rise, and political violence could erupt over water. In Iraq, the water crisis has been in the making for nearly 2 decades. Like this lake in Iraq's western desert. The Sawa Lake was once a biodiverse wetland and a recreational landmark. But humans and climate change have now killed it. It is a barren wasteland with piles of salt.
This year, for the first time, the lake has disappeared. In previous years, the water area had decreased during the dry seasons. But this year, for the first time, the lake has completely disappeared. And this is a clear indication of the impact of climate change on the region.
Iraq has witnessed persistent drought over the years. Sometimes temperatures are so high it could become uninhabitable soon. Add climate change to the back and the future of water and life here is as grim as ever. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
The pandemic had battered Jordan's tourism industry, but now the West Asian nation is staring at a revival. Tourism accounts for over 13% of the country's GDP, so a flourishing tourism sector is what the Hashemite kingdom needs. And now they are trying to boost it by pushing medical tourism, making use of their world-class facilities to lure people to visit the country. Let's take a look.
The Valley of the Moon, a sea where you cannot drown, and the ruins of an ancient city lost in time. Jordan is any traveler's dream, one that the pandemic shattered. Jordan is known for its stability. In a region of conflicts, it is a bulwark of peace. Years of peace led to a booming tourism industry. It accounts for 13.8% of Jordan's GDP, so clearly a significant pillar of its economy. So Jordan is trying desperately to revive it. Demand is largely concentrated on tourists from the region, like those from the Gulf and North Africa. Jordan's diverse tourist attractions help even further, from ancient cities of Jerash and Petra to the splendor of the Dead Sea and its nature reserves and hot springs. But the weather is one of Jordan's most significant assets. In a region known for high temperatures, Jordan's summer is a comfortable 33 degrees. But it is not just conventional tourism Jordan is banking on. It is also pushing its medical tourism. Jordan is known for its state-of-the-art medical facilities. Its healthcare sector is one of the best in the region. For example, UK has around 2.7 doctors per 1,000 residents. Jordan, too, has around 2.6 doctors per 1,000 citizens. Jordan has 63 private hospitals and 2 university centers that specialize in research and training. Support staff includes 32 nurses per 10,000 Jordanians. The number of pharmacists in the kingdom are 14 per 10,000 Jordanians, a figure comparable to that of Japan. What's even more important is that it is affordable, so tourists from foreign countries often flock to Jordan for treatments. And not just conventional healthcare, Jordan is also pushing other practices, using its biggest resource of minerals, the Dead Sea. Dead Sea minerals are widely known for its healing property. They are often used to treat skin-related diseases. Dead Sea water and its thick black mud are known to increase blood circulation and provide healing for arthritis, allergies, and skincare. Currently, Jordan is bullish on the prospects of its medical tourism industry. The government has acted accordingly. It is investing heavily in this sector. The idea is to improve facilities further and use resources to train more and more healthcare professionals. Jordan believes that economic revival and medical tourism must go hand in hand. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, bringing you more stories from this part of the world. Until then, stay safe. I am Ghadi Francis and you're watching WION. World is One.